Hi, everybody, and welcome back to The Adapted Life with me, Julie Hasselberger. It is a glorious fall day today. It's October 4th, and if the light's a little funky, I think it's okay. It's just because I'm letting this light just stream in from outside. It feels so wonderful. It's been beautiful here, just cool at night and like 70 during the day every day. I've really been enjoying that. I love the fall. And yeah, and speaking of love, this seems to be a time of love for us and our family. And I am going to do this episode, it's going to be called Love in Transition. And in the spirit of transitioning during all kinds of times in our lives, we're transitioning with my daughter getting married soon. And I just celebrated, John and I celebrated 33 years of marriage. It was yesterday, October 3rd, 1992. That's when we got married. And seems like a lifetime ago. Um, so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. And I think it's important to just kind of take a second before we sink in. Just take a breath. Because love is a tricky one to talk about. It can cause our most incredible joy in our lives and our most heartbreaking pain all together sometimes. So it feels like a tender season for me in doing this. And I'm so busy right now. I didn't anticipate that I would be recording today, but something just called to me and said, let's just sit down and put this topic on there because the whole thing, the whole brand new beginning with love and reflecting on all these years of everything that's happened. There's been so much celebration. There's so much more to come. But with looking back, there's also a reflection and love as we are all learning in our lives. And as I'm learning, is definitely not a straight line situation. It will shift and bend and break. And yet, in all of its transitions, it does continue to ask us the same question, like love in terms of relationships. Like, will you keep choosing each other? And what's the answer to that? So yeah, so watching my daughter getting ready to get married, it reminds me of like the courage that it takes um, to actually do that, right? To say yes to a lifelong partnership. And it seems like just a big whirlwind of fairy tale things, right? Just the preparation for the actual ceremony and the party. But there's the courage and the vulnerability that lies beneath that. And I think understanding that, yeah, it's a party, it's a beautiful celebration. But the harder part is the longevity of that love. There's going to be challenges, and nobody knows what's going to happen. And still, you're vulnerable, and you're saying, "Yes, I want to do this with you, and I want to commit and vow my love to you." And you don't see your whole path, so you're really kind of being brave, right? You're stepping into courage, hopeful, and promising each other promises that you really don't know if you're going to actually be able to keep or if things are going to stay strong. You don't really know. You're just having faith in what you know now and taking it to that next level. Um, so when we go into marriage, we bring parts of us with into the marriage, things that we had prior to meeting that person for good or for bad, right? We don't really know how these things are going to mesh and work together or not. And sometimes they don't, and sometimes they collide, and we find ourselves facing the reasons why And that's when you can kind of get into, your childhood, or the things that have happened to you prior to meeting your partner, the attachment, what kind of attachment you have, and how you alone process challenges and different things. And it's not until time goes by that, when you're faced with something significant, that you begin to understand how you process things could be very different from how your partner processes things. And then it gives you either a place to collide and fall apart, or a place to collide and figure out how to heal some of those things that don't feel like they're meshing. Um, but sometimes, yeah, like, so these things that we bring with us, we don't mean to do it. Sometimes we're going to hurt the very person that we love. And sometimes it's going to take a lot of work, hard work, because I don't think there's any real fairy tale situation. I think the whole part of it is learning how to merge two people into one. And it doesn't happen seamlessly most of the time, right? It's a transition. So you're transitioning to a coupleship, but you're transitioning to a whole life of learning and understanding and growth. And so, yeah. So, I mean, I can say, marriage is both the hardest and the most beautiful journey that you can be on. And if it's still together and it's still hanging on, and you still love each other, and you're still saying, I want to be with this person until I take my last breath in this lifetime. I mean, that's a big commitment, and a big huge journey that you're going to take. So, there were seasons in my life already where so much trauma and pain from different things like shook the foundation of who I am, and my relationship, and my whole like feeling of what is real and what is not real. And sometimes I felt like a lot of the cracks in my life are just too deep, and I didn't know how I was gonna find my way out of those cracks. And I felt like everything just was rubble, and looking back, everything felt like it wasn't really what I thought it was. And it was shattered, and there's no way to pretend otherwise. It happens, but it happens in a lot of different ways. I mean, it happened when we found out Daniel was disabled and medically fragile. So much was shattered there. And then in our own relationship, things have happened. But in the breaking, something can happen. Something unexpected can happen when things break apart. You won't have the same situation ever again. It'll never be the same. Things are going to be different. You're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to come through the grief into a place where you're like, okay, I feel like an infant on a new planet. That's how I feel sometimes, right? But your breaking can also result in a different way of connecting together in a new way, in a new formation. You're going to choose to carry your grief with you. And when Daniel passed away, I mean, it was so hard on all of us. And it was just a pure example of how I carry grief is different than every member of my immediate family, how they carry grief. And it can be really challenging because you don't feel understood or empathized with. And then you question, am I Am I the one who's crazy here? Or I don't even know what to do with all this. I just feel so sad all the time, right? And then we realize we're all building resilience in our own way. And I think that's really cool. So, I'm watching my own partner after all these 33 years working on himself, and I'm working on myself. We're developing more resilience, more empathy, and emotional intelligence. We're dealing with things. We're committed to love and healing. Um, it kind of just gives me hope in terms of the future. And it's so exciting that my daughter's getting married, because it just feels like a really pivotal 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 time for her and for us and for our family. And sometimes, things break, and sometimes we want to hang on to things, right? We want them to be the way that our brain thinks they should be, but you come to a point where you just need to kind of let go and see what happens. And it might look messy when you're letting go and then you're putting it back in a different way. Um, but I've heard a lot of references to something called kintsugi. Kintsugi. It's basically a Japanese word for a certain type of art. And so this kind of leads me into some creativity, because I just have been really digging into creativity after Daniel's life. Kintsugi is when pottery is cracked and broken into bits of bits of nothing, right? And then they take those pieces and they use real gold and they put them back together so the cracks don't disappear in the pottery. You see the cracks, right? But the cracks are part of the beauty of the piece now. So our cracks are part of our beauty, our lessons that we're learning and the wisdom we're gaining is part of the journey and the adapting and the transition. So that's how I see love. It's in marriage. It's not unbroken. It's not touched by only happiness and joy and perfect life. It's touched with pain and heartache and excruciating difficulty. But if love adapts and mends and carries you forward, then your ultimate end product, so to say, is this beautiful piece with cracks and holes where there's just this golden glue that's holding it all together, right? And I think it's Rumi. There's a couple of quotes I can think of, but Rumi said, the crack is where the light gets in. So we crack, and then we are learning from our humanness, um, how to become a better and more resilient person, right? So I see family that way. I see marriage that way. I see a lot of things that way, because I cannot escape the pain that I live with every day. And it's big pain and big heartache. And I'm trying really hard in this season of love, in this week, in this month of October, where, you know, the love has to carry us forward in all of its forms, in its brokenness, in its wholeness. And it does. And honestly, what choice do we have? We can either end things and go a different direction and let go, or we can hold on to what we believe in our heart. And I like that. I like kintsugi. I want to do that. I want to see one. I want to get one. um, so So this is just a few reflection questions. So when you what did you bring into your relationships that has been both a gift and a challenge? Where have you guys seen the cracks appearing, and how have you, or how might you, um, repair them? Begin to repair them. Has there been any gold or light that's come through the cracks that you once thought could never kind of hold together again? And how have you witnessed yourself or your partner grow in ways that you never expected, and grow in ways that have now created space for greater connection or better connection? As I close this, I just want to say, witnessing my daughter step into her own beautiful beginning, um, with her fiance and her son. And I just want to say that love is definitely not perfect. It is not unbroken, but in its willingness to bend, to break, and to bend, it becomes deeper, truer, and more enduring than we ever imagined back in the beginning, when, it was all like, I have a ring, I'm going to get a dress, I'm going to get married, we're so excited, we're going to have kids someday. The stuff I'm talking about, you can't know then because you haven't lived it yet. But if you've lived it and you've made it through it, and trust me, I know sometimes it's time to end and move on. I'm not saying that everybody has to hang on. I'm just saying, if you are in a circumstance where you feel in your heart that you really love each other, but things are really difficult, but you want to work on it. So you work really hard and you take all of the steps and make all of the choices to really get to the heart of that. And that's the hard stuff. The working on it is the hard stuff, because that's what brings up the pain and the brokenness. But it's also what brings the understanding that you need to glue it, or to build a new one, or whatever you're going to do, right? Um, so that's the greatest gift, anyways, is just what happens in transition. It doesn't stay the same. Nothing stays the same. But as it transitions, love, it also transforms us as human beings. So that even in the cracks, we still find a way to hold on to each other and to honor the love that we have and that remains and that has carried us along, even with all of the loss and heartache and pain and grief. And we see that in this moment, it was all worth it. So, sending you guys love and all my best wishes from the Adapted Life, from me, Julie Hasselberger, here in my sunny corner of the world in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, where the fall leaves are changing, and I'm having a very happy afternoon planning and thinking about my daughter's wedding. So much love. And next time, maybe I'll talk a little bit about creativity and what that's meant to me, and share some of the things that happened to me, like after Daniel died. It kind of was a transition from when he was alive into when he died, and then it took off with my dealing with grief. Can't wait to talk more about that, and wishing you all the best. Thanks for listening. Bye now.